how do you know who to adopt? Like,
Yeah.
it's so overwhelming because
Right.
there's so many kids who need
Yeah.
families.
Right.
And we both kind of collectively felt like ultimately most people are adopting because they can't have kids.
Right.
We've been blessed to be able to have kids. So
kids,
maybe
yeah.
we should focus on kids that most likely wouldn't get adopted.
Yeah.
And so we started looking more at kids with special needs.
Yeah.
And one of the first kid that my wife was really drawn to was this little boy. And we ended up naming him Morris. We ended up adopting him. But he was in an orphanage for 5 years. He had spina bifida. We didn't really know much about him, except for the fact that, you know, he needed a family.
Right.
I did hear when you were talking, like in the beginning, you didn't really have like a ton of knowledge
Not at all.
about what you were doing, but you were the kind of person that you threw yourself in it and you figured it out.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I think honestly, I think all of us are, you know, I think part of it is you're born with a certain amount of like you said, entrepreneurial spirit.
Gumption.
I think the only reason I was successful in music is not because I was a good musician. I wasn't a great songwriter, didn't have a great voice, but what I did have was like, I don't quit and I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so I found myself even after it, like by just continuing to show up, I was a lot more successful than people who were way more talented than me. And so I don't know if you guys have ever read that book, Talent is Overrated, but it's an interesting kind of perspective on the fact that if you just keep showing up and keep willing to learn and to be humble and not feel like, and ask questions and be like, hey, help me about this, or look online. Like, I remember I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I was asking friends, and I was just like, I'm going to figure this out because I know that, no offense, like I know you're not smarter than me.
Right.
I know that the information's out there.
Yeah.
You just got to find it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels kind of hidden sometimes, but there are resources out there to find that information. And it's worth it. Like, find it. And then the biggest thing is applying it though, because with information without any application, it does nothing for you.
Absolutely. We're the hugest, that's not a word, but the biggest
you can make it a word
proponents of what you just said, because it's not about, like you said, talent at the end of the day. It's just about having that skill and taking action. And that skill simply is the figure it out skill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Find a solution.
Yes.
And move forward.
And then apply though. Find the solution, apply, next step. Find the solution, apply. That's the key to success.
And it's never ending. And it's the same in relationships. It's the same in being a parent.
Yeah.
It's the same in business.
Yep.
Is that ultimately there's things I'm learning about business today that I'm not educated in that essence. Like I didn't go to college. Like I didn't know anything about real estate. And so now as like a business owner, like multiple businesses and trying to, you know, find employees, like I've realized about myself, I just hire people that I like. And that doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
It's like, I think this is a really great person. I enjoy being around you, but you're actually not good at what you do. Or you just like, I just hired somebody who's really, really skilled, but they're using it, they're opportunists, which isn't always a bad thing. But now they're like, they were here for 8 months, positioning themselves, and now they just leverage this job to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm still learning, like, how do I deal with this? Like, cause this is really annoying. Like this just cost me, you know, probably $500 to $1 million over the last 2 years of making bad decisions because I'm not skilled, but I'm not going to just sit back and be like, well, that stinks. Like I'm going to figure it out.
Gotta keep going.
And keep going, but it's never ending. Like in life or otherwise, you
different
just gotta
levels is different devils, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And ain't that the truth?
So it's not, no one has it all figured out. That's the end of the day. It's just like, we're all learning, even though like people assume, oh, you're on HGTV, like everything's gonna be perfect. And then we work with these clients. We're like, shouldn't this be going smoother? I'm like, this is called construction.
This is what it is.
This is real life.
It doesn't work like this. Like, that's just not how life works.
Yes, exactly. We always say that too to our students. We're like, it's not every time you see this on HGTV. Like, here's what we really did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got into real estate through flipping, just like us.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly. And I kept doing it because we just kept adopting. And once we adopted our first son, Morris, which was honestly just a miracle. Like even that, how we found him was just, it was crazy how it all came together. My wife and I, after we'd had our first 2 kids, we knew that both of us, we'd gone through to mission trips as kids. Like I'd gone to India with my dad. My wife had gone to Romania, and we really had a heart for orphans. And so we didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. But as we started like praying about like who, you know, how do you know who to adopt? Like it's so overwhelming because there's so many kids who need families. And we both kind of collectively felt like ultimately most people are adopting because they can't have kids. We've been blessed to be able to have kids. So maybe we should focus on kids that most likely wouldn't get adopted. And so we started looking more at kids with special needs. And one of the first kid that my wife was really drawn to was this little boy. And we ended up naming him Morris. We ended up adopting him, but he was in an orphanage for 5 years. He had spina bifida, and we didn't really know much about him, except for the fact that, he needed a family.
Right.
And my wife just kept getting drawn to him. And we were learning about the process, and it was like, we realized you had to make a certain amount of money. You had to be 30 years old to adopt. And there's like all these like regulations.
Qualifications or
lots.
Yeah.
We're like,
crazy.
it's not even, you can't even adopt from China currently. So there's always, things are always kind of like changing. Well, anyways, we were touring. We were in Astoria, Oregon this one night, and we were like packing up the trailer, and my wife was with the 2 kids. They were asleep in the van, and she was like waiting. It was like 11 o'clock at night or whatever. And she had this, I guess I don't like to over spiritualize things, but it was like a vision of a child like sitting next to her that was Chinese.
Yeah.
And I remember like multiple days later, she told me about it. She's like, hey, like, are you open to adopting from China? Like, I feel like I had a vision of like a kid from China.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if we foster, I don't care where we adopt from. I'm open to whatever.
Yeah.
And so she started like, kind of looking through the different kids who needed, families, and was really drawn to this little boy that was from China. That's how she started looking at kids from China specifically. Right. And anyways, it was like 9 months later, where she was almost 30, and she was like, we got to like talk through. And we were kind of just praying about it. We weren't really sure. And we just had a lot of life going on in general.
Right.
She's like, I really think we should start, thinking about this. I'm like, okay. And so I'm on tour somewhere in like California, and she calls me up this one night, and she said, hey, she's like, you're never going to believe this. And I'm like, what? And she was like, I know we've been praying for confirmation. Like, how do you make these big decisions in your life? Like to move forward? It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, I was praying about Morris, and I went and I looked at his file, and he was born on November 17th. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, remember last year I told you about that vision I had in Astoria, Oregon? When we were there, you were packing up. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, that was November 17th.
That's crazy.
And I was like, I got like
chicken skin
immediately. And I was just like, first thing I said, that's our son. Yeah. And it was just like, we had been like, just trying, because it's such a, it's like for life. It's not like a little decision.
No, that's.
And the thing that was more important than anything is after the fact that he knows that God chose him to be in our family.
Right.
And we can show him that.
Yeah.
Like, has brought him, I think, so much peace. To know that this is my family. This is my security. This is where God had me.
That's so beautiful.
It's been really, really neat. So that kind of started the whole journey for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that literally makes me want to cry.
I know.
But that's how God works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's
been amazing.
There's no denying that.
No.
That's
and then, but it also, because when things get hard, like you do need a foundation, and this is the same in business. Like you need a foundation to be like, no, I know I'm supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
And I know that this is where I'm at, and I'm committed to it.
Yep.
No matter what happens, because chaos is never gonna. It's when it's gonna hit. It's not. And it's in family, it's in business, it's in life, it's in relationships.
Absolutely.
And so just having that to fall back on has been so great, and it really opened up our journey, because once we got Morris. When we came home, he said, I want you to go get my friend Jin John so he can come play with my toys. And we found out Jin John was Tucker, who we ended up adopting.
Wow.
And he had Down syndrome. We didn't know anything about Down syndrome at that point.
Yeah.
But once we met him, like he changed our lives from opening us up to that specific special need. Because we just never been around people with Down syndrome.
Right.
And he just so every kid since then has actually had Down syndrome.
Okay.
And so the first 4 kids that we adopted all were from the same orphanage.
Okay.
And they all grew up together.
Oh,
so Morris and them all were friends. They were all connected.
They were all together.
They're all together like a family.
Crazy.
And so we brought them.
Now they are family.
Yeah. And then we adopted, our last we adopted was Promise from Ukraine, which was a whole nother situation. But she lived basically the first 14 years of her life in a crib and was just bedridden, like had learned to walk at 13.
Wow.
And it was a totally unique situation.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with her. Just she had Down syndrome.
Yeah.
But now she has obviously institutional autism and a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you guys will meet her later on tonight.
Yeah.
She's an amazing girl. Doesn't talk, but there's still you realize connection has so much more to do than just communication through
absolutely
through talking.
So I mean, this is such a big part of your guys' life, and it's almost how you speak about it so passionately. It's almost like a mission. So what do you want people to know about adoption and kids that need love, that are special needs, you know?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I would say more than anything, it's really just being open to, what your life is meant to be. I think it probably comes down to that, because it's not for everybody.
Right.
I think it has everything to do with, like, I've got one short life to live, and the most important thing I can do with my life is to love. Like, I know that. And that's going to look different for everybody. It's going to look different, but it needs to be happening in our lives, because that ultimately is where we find purpose and joy.
Yeah.
Because as you know, like, just making a bunch of money and buying cool things and, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't give you purpose. It doesn't give you satisfaction or contentment. And what I've realized is where I find the greatest joy in my life, the greatest peace and purpose, is when I'm loving other people. And when I find myself in their world. And so I think for us, that's what adoption has done. And it's going to look different for everybody. It could be, your next door neighbor. It could be your grandma. It could be, your children.
Right.
And so I think that just that to me is the greatest thing that I think we've found, is this just happens to be our journey. And we've found so much like joy in that it is really better to give than to receive. And we're not patting ourselves on the back. People come up to us and be like, oh my gosh, so good for you guys. Like, you guys are incredible people. And it's like, no, it really, like, it's so hard to explain until you're in it.
Of course.
That they bring us more joy than we could ever give them. Like, it really is true. It's not cliche. It's not what we're saying. And when people find themselves successful yet empty, I always try to push them to, like, find where you can be giving in your life and not just taking. Because it's not fulfilling. Time to get paid, blow up like I'm blowing up.